What is this? Let me look this up. Does our law condemn a man without first hearing him to find out what he's been doing? Wow! The audacity, the gall. 9-year-old boy outsmarts killer preacher, avenges his entire family.
All right, what happened today?
I ran very fast with my baby sister. I just didn't want to be killed.
Okay.
The boy you see here is 9-year-old Andrew Hawkinsmith. 1 hour before this footage was recorded, Andrew was living a happy life with a loving and supportive family. His parents were the owners of a local pawn shop in Danville, Kentucky, and had welcomed a new member of their family, little Naomi. Andrew was so happy to be a big brother and loved his baby sister more than anything in the world. But on September 20th, 2013, the family's life took a disturbing turn for the worse when the 9-year-old boy heard gunshots and screams.
Oh, God.
911, where's your emergency?
Come here quickly because I'm afraid. Please hurry.
Okay, they're coming, okay?
The year is 2013. In the quiet town
Thank
of
you,
Danville,
Phantom,
Kentucky,
for the prime.
Andrew Hawkinsmith lives a happy life with his father, Michael, his mother, Angie, and his 13-month-old sister, Naomi. When Andrew's father first met his wife, Angie, it was love at first sight.
Angie was a real nice young lady, and she was really his first love. They was just so happy together.
The young couple shared a strong religious faith, and Michael worked as a part-time youth pastor in the area. They were both very active in their church and very well known in the community. But Andrew's father did not make enough to support the family as a youth pastor and needed another source of income. That's when a friend in the church community and another religious leader, Pastor Alan Keith, had an interesting proposition for Andrew's father, Michael Hawkinsmith.
Mike and Angie both looked up to Alan, and Andrew, he looked up to Mr. Keith as an uncle. He thought he was his uncle there.
Pastor Keith, a well-known...
Dude, I don't know. That's just such a dangerous way to look at things, is looking like, I feel like people blindly look up to pastors and religious leaders without knowing anything about them. And that is the most dangerous fucking thing in the world, you know?
Known religious figure in the area, preached in multiple
Which is why there's so many pastors that do horrific crimes.
churches about the word of God. But on the side,
Easy to manipulate.
Pastor Keith had a unique side business, running and owning pawn shops.
Usually pastors and pawn shops don't necessarily go together.
He was buying precious metals, videos, and CDs and things.
Between that and the Bible, that was his life.
Pastor Keith loved God and preached every Sunday throughout Pulaski County. Pastor Keith also loved money, and more specifically, gold. Through Pastor Keith's leadership and guidance, Mike joins the business himself and starts to work at ABC Gold Games and More pawn shop. With the new business rolling and the arrival of baby Naomi, life is good for the Hawkinsmiths, who genuinely enjoy spending quality time together. Angie and Mike even make the decision to homeschool young Andrew so that the family can stay close even during the day. Now, each morning, Andrew, his parents, and baby Naomi all hang out in the family's pawn shop.
The pawn shop, that was basically my home.
So basically the pastor like groomed the entire family.
Had all the knickknacks of a pawn shop, from like games to movies to all sorts of junk. It was basically a playground. I absolutely loved it. It was simply amazing.
But things take a disturbing turn for the worse on September 20th, 2013. At 9:17 a.m., a 911 dispatcher in Kentucky takes a call. On the other line, a young boy's quiet voice tells him about an ongoing robbery in Danville.
911, where's your emergency?
Is a robber at a pawn shop?
9-year-old Andrew Hawkinsmith pleads with the operator
Thank you,
for some
Zaza.
help, and while the dispatcher tries to get as much information as possible, he hears something even more unsettling: a baby crying.
Where's the robber? Where is he?
He's right here, right now.
The pair must try to remain silent, as any noise will easily alert their location to the robber still lurking in the shop.
Come here quickly because I'm afraid. Please hurry.
Okay, they're coming, okay?
Right away, the 911 operator dispatches the patrol
Matthew 6:24, no one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. Money and God do not mix. Well, see, that's the thing. Ironically, a lot of the shit in the Bible completely like counter like 90% of the shit that pastors do, or like people do in general. But they like twisting specific Bible verses in order for them to look good, even though there are plenty of things in the Bible that actually say that what they're doing is completely horrible and wrong. But, you know, that's a whole other conversation.
Patrol unit. While the terrified 9-year-old stays on the line, officers hurry to the scene, unaware of what they're about to face. Within only 6 minutes, officers arrive at the scene. Aware of the urgency of the situation, authorities attempt to open the front door of the store, but it's locked, so they break the glass and force their way in.
As I made entry, all I was thinking about was, is the shooter still here? The first thing that I noticed was a huge smear of blood to my right in the lobby area of the store.
I don't care how many times you've done it or seen it. There's nothing that truly prepares you for this.
Their worst fears are confirmed when they discover 3 bodies lying on the floor. Not knowing if the killer is still inside, they quickly clear the scene, looking for the 9-year-old caller. Guided by the dispatcher, there's a sigh of relief when the officers find the 2 young children still hiding. Both of them are directly taken to the police station.
Wait, hold up. 3? So does that mean it's a different pastor? Or maybe the pastor killed himself.
Terrified, but physically unharmed. Back at the pawn shop, cops and
That wouldn't make any sense because this is Outsmarts Killer Preacher.
detectives fill up the store, while a forensic scientist starts to examine the bodies. It's a difficult scene to analyze since the store is selling guns and ammunition, making it harder to identify what's a clue and what isn't. A first female body is lying near the register. A second one, a male victim, is on the other side of the counter. A trace of blood leads to the third victim, another male, in the back.
One of the bodies had been moved to a location where if someone peered into the front door, they wouldn't be able to see that body.
The victims had been shot multiple times, possibly after they were down. The only thing at that time that we could determine was that the spent casings appeared to be from a .22 caliber weapon.
Andrew's paternal and maternal grandma.
Oh, pawn stores sell guns? That's wild. Dude, every pawn store sells guns. I honestly don't think there's a pawn store that doesn't sell guns. Thinking about it. Like, I feel like that's like, peanut butter and jelly, pretty much. Like they always do.
Others, Charlene and Barbara, rush to the crime scene, wanting to make sure their family is safe and also understand what's happening. From a distance, they can see yellow tape behind the cop cars, and as they approach the pawn shop, more and more officers prevent them from going further.
Where are the kids?
The policeman would not let us up to the shop. They said, you cannot go in. Well, I just broke down at that point. I knew they were gone. And my heart just sunk. Just couldn't understand why. What had they done so bad that they deserved to die?
Would not comprehend why anyone in their right mind would want to hurt either one of them.
The first 2 victims at the front of the store are identified as Michael and Angie Hawkinsmith, owners of the store and loving parents of Andrew and Naomi.
I need to know who's the third.
Is 60-year-old Dan Smith.
Oh, it's a customer. So what's the pastor?
Regular customer of the Hawkinsmith who would routinely buy and sell gold in the area. At first glance, the scene looks like a burglary gone wrong. The Hawkinsmith store is indeed a pawn shop, therefore a target of choice for people wanting to steal valuables. However, a crucial piece of evidence doesn't make sense with this theory. Dan Smith's suitcase is open on the counter and is still full of money, as well as the register. Why wouldn't the robber take some money with him before fleeing?
As I continued to process the scene, I discovered that over $1,000 from the cash register was still there. It hadn't been taken. Both Mike and Dan's wallets hadn't been taken. It made me start to think that the victims had been targeted for a reason other than robbery.
Detectives are puzzled by the setting of the crime scene. If it wasn't a robbery, then what happened? Were any of them specifically targeted by the killer?
We're like, what do we have here? It was a hit Was it on Dan Smith?
Dan Smith was a gold buyer. He carries a briefcase with him with a large amount of cash.
Dan Smith's wife was able to tell us that he would do a certain route on certain days of the week. So he goes to his bank, he gets the money, and then he had a lot of pawn shops that he went to.
Is that just his job? Does he just flip gold? Just runs to a bunch of pawn shops and buy gold?
The investigators go to Lawson's Jewelers in Harrodsburg, a store on Dan's normal route, just 19 minutes away from the Hawkinsmith's pawn shop.
He walks in with that same briefcase and then talks to the lady behind the counter and just appears very relaxed, laughing. Has no idea, obviously, where he's headed. I don't even think it was a full hour after this. Dan Smith was killed.
There was nobody that appeared to be paying any particular attention to him. There was nothing that stood out.
We really were kind of baffled at this point. Who was even the target?
Is there anything you're not allowed to sell at a pawn shop? No, I don't think. I mean, pretty much you can sell anything. Maybe not used condoms or like used underwear. No, probably used underwear. Human organs? Debatable. Debatable. Stolen goods? Very debatable. Very debatable. Stolen stuff? Yes, what are you talking about? They don't know it's stolen? Feet pics? That's debatable. What do you mean? Okay, you're telling me if I went to Walmart, stole a banana, brought it back to the pawn shop, and sold it to them, they wouldn't buy it because they think it's stolen? No, that's not how that works.
Detectives' initial strategy of focusing on Dan doesn't pay off. They have no suspects and no leads for any of the victims. The murderer is still on the loose.
But are they
both
homeless?
families are
Shut up!
mourning. News of the murders reaches the town and surrounding cities, and everyone is shocked. Nothing like this ever happened in this small town.
2 young children are without their parents tonight after they were murdered inside their Danville, Kentucky pawn shop. That store is located just blocks from Centre College. As Matt McCutcheon reports, one of the kids called 911 and shielded his sister from the violence.
The town of Danville demands answers for these tragic murders. Even Pastor Alan Keith, the one who introduced the Hawkinsmiths into the pawn business, shares his sorrow on social media.
Oh,
and pays
you little bitch.
Tribute to the victims. No sleep at all. I am in shock right now over the loss of 3 great people. I also knew the third man.
Are you gonna pray for him?
He was a business client and a good friend.
We're now learning that the suspect
pray for
in
him?
this case, apparently police say, made his way out of this garage door and then took off through the alley, never to be seen from again.
If you have any information, call Danville Police at the number now on your screen.
There's no time to lose for the police as the killer is still on the loose, but they still have no clear motive or even a specific suspect. At this point, Andrew could still be a target without the cops even knowing why. The young orphans are now being protected by authorities at the police station and will soon go under the care of their grandparents. Everyone in the quiet town is still baffled by who would want to harm both families and end the lives of these young children's parents. Officers struggle to figure out what their next step will be when a call comes in with a promising lead.
I'd gotten on Facebook and noticed, homicides in Danville, Kentucky pawn shop. And immediately my heart sunk because I thought a friend of mine still owned that shop, Alan Keith. So that's when I called him. Immediately as soon as I started talking to him, it was an odd conversation.
Once Kenneth Allen's name was mentioned, we started looking, okay, who is this guy?
He was involved in the pawn shop business. He had one in Somerset, Kentucky. And he was a pastor of a small town church in Pulaski County, Kentucky. He appeared to be loved by his local congregation.
That was kind of a common denominator for everybody involved, as they were all heavily into the church, either as pastors, ministers, leaders, just in a church.
Brother Harold, he said, I feel horrible because he said, I got Mike Hawkinsmith into the pawn business.
The caller explains that one of his friends, Pastor Kenneth Alan Keith, had made suspicious comments about the case.
When I called Alan, it kept getting weirder and weirder.
Pastor Keith, who lives in Somerset, roughly 50 minutes away, just
What's with all
happened
these
to be in
pastors
Danville
owning
on the
pawn
day of the
shops?
murder.
Because pastors love money.
On September 20th, he drove 43 miles to get
A
his
lot of
wife's
pastors love
prescription
money.
in a local pharmacy where he wasn't a regular.
I said, you were in Danville? He goes, yeah. He says, I was in Danville to pick up my wife's prescriptions.
Alan's given us detailed step-by-step description of where he was that day.
Now I'm freaking out because I'm thinking, why are you telling me this? So pretty much, Michael and Angela were innocent bystanders. And then he said they weren't innocent. They cost me a lot of money.
What? What? Why, bro, why would you, dude, I'm so glad criminals are so fucking dumb. Like, why would you even say that? What if they deserved it? Well, what if it was their fault? What if they deserved it? That's a very normal thing to say.
The investigators keep digging into his life and go through Pastor Keith's finances. They soon learn that he had once been a full owner of the pawn shop, but because of debt and poor finances, he was forced to give up ownership to Mike and Angie Hawkinsmith.
Kenneth felt cheated. He felt that that pawn shop should have been his.
Really? Over a pawn shop, bro? Over a rundown pawn shop?
And that Hawkinsmith basically stole it right out underneath his feet.
Didn't you sell it to him?
Finally revealing itself. But there's a problem. Around the time of the crime, Pastor Keith was supposedly buying medicines for his wife. If his alibi was confirmed and he was seen on the video cameras, he could be ruled out completely from being the murderer.
I was in Danville, but I was at the pharmacy. I'm standing in the pharmacy while all this happened.
We immediately dispatched investigators to retrieve the video from the pharmacy where he alleged that he had picked up the prescriptions for his wife.
If he was in there during the time of the shooting, then he wouldn't have been a suspect.
And then, cops see Pastor Alan Keith on the security cameras of the pharmacy at 9:24 a.m., which is only 8 minutes after the time of the murders. It would be impossible for him to be at two places at the same time. Therefore, this alibi could completely rule out their prime suspect and potentially derail the whole investigation.
He has a pastor double.
However, there's only one person the cops can really trust who can give more insight as to what happened that morning.
Kids!
9-year-old Andrew, the young survivor who called 911 the day of the murders. If Andrew could provide any evidence that Pastor Keith was indeed at the pawn shop and not at the pharmacy at the time of the murders, the case could finally be solvable.
What happened today earlier before you and I met?
Yes. Anyways. And that reminds me of the dead people.
Oh, man.
September 20th starts like any other day.
Oh, that's so
The
fucking
Hawkinsmiths arrive at the shop
sad.
and
Oh,
open
God.
it at 9 a.m. Andrew starts to play a game in a corner, while his parents prepare the business for the day ahead. Within a few minutes, a client enters.
The gold man, Dan Smith, came in.
While Andrew's dad talks to Dan, Angie rocks Naomi in her arms, near the register. Dan, the gold man, is a regular at his parents' shop. The interaction is normal, mundane, and Andrew's attention goes back to his own activity. In between studying sessions with his mom, the little boy has plenty of time to test out some of the new games sold in the store.
Shortly after, this guy...
That actually would be pretty sick to be a kid and your parents own a pawn shop. Like, you'd probably get to have all the games you want because people would just sell all the games.
He came in as well, and I was like, he's kind of weird looking. He starts to pull out a gun and kind of raises his voice and says, "Get on the ground." And we all did because we was petrified.
Andrew, his mom, and sister are huddled up in a corner, hiding, terrified. They secretly watch in horror as the intruder fires his weapon 8 times. To the 9-year-old boy, the weird sounds are identified as darts. In the midst of the chaos, he looks right at what would become his father's last moments.
Dad was like, "Please stop." He started rolling around until he wasn't. He stopped.
The gunman then turns to Dan. It's at that moment that Angie understands what will happen to them as the intruder starts to make his way to them. She and her children are the next targets. In one final act of courage, Angie turns to her 2 children. There's only one hiding spot left in the shop.
My mom, she told me to go in the back with my sister.
Oh my God, dude.
I crawl all the way back to the office. I sit my sister on the couch. I'm sitting right beside her.
Now hidden in the office, Andrew hears 4 more gunshots. Then, silence. A few more seconds of silence go by. Andrew and Naomi try to remain quiet, but the boy knows he has to take a look outside and see if his parents are okay.
Oh,
I remember
no.
crawling over to the doorway and
God,
seeing that my mom was just laying there with a puddle of blood.
Devastated, Andrew drags himself back to the office
Jesus
area.
Christ, why did you guys make me click on this video? This was your guys' fault. You did this. I didn't click on this. You guys, why did you make me do this? Why did you make me do this, chat? Come on. It's all your guys' fault.
He and his sister seem to be the only ones left alive. Now, Naomi's survival is all that matters.
It wasn't my fault!
Phone and dials 911, hoping that he'll get some help before the intruder figures out where he and his sister are.
A 9-year-old boy called 911 saying his family had been killed.
Who suggested this video? Well, it wasn't me. I didn't see it in my recommended and click on it. It wasn't me. I didn't get recommended this video, okay? It's your guys' fault.
What the little boy did before that is simply heartbreaking.
He grabbed his little sister up and he carried her in the office and he covered her with his body.
Okay.
It's just, he's a hero.
He and his 14-month-old sister were not physically hurt.
I ran very fast with my baby sister. I just didn't want to be killed.
Thanks to Andrew's bravery, quick thinking, and recollection of the chain of events, Pastor Keith's alibi starts to crumble.
Good!
And police can confidently build a case against him. Suddenly, all the clues that were collected right after the crime make perfect sense. Pastor Keith is the owner of a silver minivan. Right before the shooting and right after, a security camera had caught a similar car driving around the pawn shop. And thanks to Andrew's secret 911 call, this crucial timestamp makes it completely possible that he could have gone to both places almost at the same time. Without this, Pastor Keith could have gotten away with his pharmacy alibi.
From the pawn shop to the pharmacy, that was a doable time.
Finally, on October 9, 2013, 19 days after the murders, police finally have enough to arrest him and have 3 warrants. One for his home, one for his church, and one for his pawn shop in Somerset.
Get fucked.
An investigator went in as a
The priest looks like a pig. He really does.
potential customer and made contact with Mr. Allen.
We discovered a box for a threaded device that can be purchased over the internet that can be fashioned into a makeshift silencer.
Dude, this guy, like, he had it all planned out. Like, he had it all planned
The discovery
out.
confirms
Jesus.
detective suspicions that a silencer was used in the killings and explains Andrew's description of a high-pitched sound as his parents were shot.
And then also outside of the business, we found spent 22 shell casings and then a target that had been shot. So we believe that he was practicing prior to the shooting.
The 22
Wow.
casings found in Kenneth Keith's pawn shop matched all the expended shell casings from the murder scene in Danville, Kentucky. They were shot.
I don't get it. They like the pastor killed him just because he's mad that they have the pawn shop now. Like, I don't get it. Like that. I don't understand.
From the identical weapon.
Pastor
People are
Keith is
so
arrested
stupid.
in his own pawn shop without incident. The Hawkinsmiths and Dan Smith's families are relieved. The man their loved ones once called a friend is behind bars.
God.
He had betrayed everything they stood for.
Dude,
but
what the fuck is this, dude? What is this shit? You know, let me look this up. Thank you so much, Video Game Noob, for the 4 months. Let me look this up. John 751. Does our law condemn a man without first hearing him to find out what he's been doing? Wow! The audacity! The gall! Wow! Wow. I can't believe that shit, bro. This guy did, wow. Wow. That's wild. That is wild.
in the end,
thank you, Princess Lemon Drop.
Justice prevailed.
But to be able to commit murders on Friday and then get up on the pulpit Sunday morning and preach, especially in front of 2 children, you're going, wait a minute, that's not a real pastor.
To spare Andrew, his family, and Dan's relatives a long and painful trial, prosecution decides to offer Keith a plea deal for him to avoid the
he
death
looks so fucking disgusting, man.
penalty. Meanwhile,
How much you want to bet he's probably like done shit in the past before?
The courts
100%.
prepare for Keith's sentencing. Young Andrew has found another outlet to share his grief. He starts to express himself through drawings and shares his feelings in the pages of a comic book. Andrew just went through unimaginable trauma, but was able to take his sister into safety and call for help. His parents always had his back, and on that day, he proved how much they were really alike.
My dad, he made things look so easy. He was truly an amazing person.
Despite the tragic end of Andrew's parents, they succeeded in protecting their children, which is what mattered to them the most. May 26, 2017, it's Andrew's 13th birthday, and also finally the day of Pastor Keith's deal with the DA. He is directly sentenced to life without parole. His greed and jealousy will never hurt anyone again. Today, Andrew is surrounded by his loving family and recently got engaged. No one can ever take away from him the memories of his parents and their love, which will always be there to guide him through anything.
I've been told you're a spitting image of your dad. You look just like him. You act just like him. Naomi, she looks just like my mom. I'm very thankful for what I have. And in a sense,
he does look like his dad.
It's like I am living through my parents' life. My parents will always live on within me.
Man, that was rough. That was rough, bro. God damn.
Now it's time to walk away. I hope you enjoyed your stay. Did you laugh or cry or maybe subscribed? I'll thank you either way. You know I will miss you. I hope you return. Tell your friend or your mother to get me more views, please.